"Open this gate." Chinedu's voice cut through the evening air like a slap. The iron gate of the compound stood wide, and a few neighbors who were returning from work froze in their steps. Even the small children playing football on the dusty road stopped and stared. At the center of it all was Mama Ruth. Old, thin, blind. Her eyes were pale and cloudy, like someone had poured milk over them. Her knees shook as she stood at the edge of the compound, holding a faded, oversized bag balanced on her head, her whole life packed inside it. The bag looked older than she was. Its sides were torn and stitched in many places, as if it had survived too many storms. Mama Ruth's fingers trembled as she tried to steady the bag. "Chinedu," she whispered, turning her face toward his voice. "My son, what is happening?" Chinedu stormed forward. He was not the same Chinedu that people used to know. This Chinedu wore a crisp white shirt, expensive shoes, and a gold watch that caught the last light of the sun. His hair was neatly cut. His shoulders looked strong. His face looked like a man who had climbed out of poverty and did not want to smell it again. But his eyes were hot with anger. "You still have the mouth to call me your son," he snapped. Mama Ruth flinched, like the words hit her more than a slap could. "I don't understand," she said, her voice weak. "I only came to do what?" Chinedu cut in. "To steal the rest of my life." The neighbors murmured. "Steal? What is he saying?" Mama Ruth's lips trembled. She lifted one hand slowly, feeling the air, trying to locate him. Her other hand held the edge of her wrapper so it would not fall. "Chinedu, please," she begged, "talk to me like a human being. I am old. I am blind. I cannot steal anything from you." Chinedu laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh people make when their hearts have already decided to be cruel. "Oh, so now you are acting holy," he said. "You think because you are blind, you can do anything and nobody will question you." Mama Ruth swallowed hard. "Question me about what?" she asked. Chinedu stepped closer. He was so close that she could smell his perfume, sharp and expensive. She reached out, hoping to touch his arm, hoping the familiar feel of him would calm him. But before her fingers could touch him, Chinedu shoved her hand away. Mama Ruth stumbled backward. The bag on her head swayed. She almost fell. A woman from the next compound gasped loudly. "Ah! Chinedu!" Chinedu pointed toward the street like a judge. "Get out!" he barked. Mama Ruth froze. "Out?" she repeated softly. "Where will I go?" Chinedu's jaw tightened. "You should have asked yourself that before you stole my money," he said. The street went quiet. Even the wind seemed to pause. Mama Ruth's mouth opened, but no words came out at first. "My money?" she whispered. "Chinedu, what money?" Chinedu's voice rose. "Don't pretend. Don't stand there and act like you don't know. The money in my drawer. The money I kept for the land payment. 2 million naira." A neighbor's hand flew to her mouth. 2 million. Jesus. Mama Ruth's body shook. She pressed her palm against her chest like her heart was being squeezed. "Chinedu," she said, almost crying, "I cannot even see your drawer. I don't even know where you keep your things. How can I steal money?" Chinedu's face twisted. "You want to swear?" he asked. "You want to swear for God?" Mama Ruth's voice cracked. "I can swear with my life." Chinedu leaned in and hissed. "No, you will not swear. Because deep down you know the truth." Mama Ruth's head turned slowly left and right, like she was searching for the ground to hold her. Her feet shuffled in her worn slippers. Then she spoke again, her voice shaking but sincere. "Who told you this thing?" she asked. "Who told you I stole your money?" Chinedu's eyes flickered. For a small second, he looked like someone who remembered something. But then anger slammed the door of his mind shut. "People that care about me," he said. "People that are not pretending to be my mother so they can drain me." Mama Ruth gave a small, painful laugh, full of sorrow. "Drain you?" she echoed. "Chinedu, I drained myself for you." But Chinedu's heart did not soften. Instead, he grabbed the edge of her faded bag. Mama Ruth screamed. "Ah, my bag!" She held the bag with both hands, fighting to keep it on her head, like a person fighting to keep their dignity. "Leave it!" Chinedu shouted, yanking harder. "You have carried it inside my house for too long." "Mama Ruth," a neighbor cried. "Hold it well." But Mama Ruth was weak. Her bones were tired. Her arms were not strong anymore. The bag slipped. It fell from her head and dropped on the dusty ground with a heavy thud. Something inside the bag tore open. Old clothes spilled out. A small scarf. A worn Bible with missing pages. A cracked plastic cup. A picture wrapped inside nylon, old, faded, and almost colorless. And a tiny brown envelope with papers inside. All her things, her whole life spilled on the road like rubbish. The street burst into shocked sounds. Ah! No, this is too much. Chinedu, why? Mama Ruth dropped to her knees immediately, hands shaking as she began to feel around. Her fingers touched the scarf. She gathered it. She touched the Bible. She pulled it close like it was a baby. She touched the picture and held it with both hands, pressing it to her chest. Her breathing became rough, not because she was tired, but because her heart was breaking. Chinedu kicked the bag away. The bag rolled on the dust and stopped near the gutter. "Carry it and go," Chinedu shouted. Mama Ruth stopped moving. She lifted her face toward him, tears running down her cheeks even though her eyes could not see. Her voice came out small. "Chinedu," she said, "if I have done wrong, ask me. Beat me if you want. But don't throw me away like this." Chinedu's face hardened. "You should have thought of that before you stole from me," he said. Mama Ruth shook her head slowly. "I did not steal," she whispered. "God knows. Heaven knows. Even your father that is in the grave knows." The mention of his father made Chinedu's chest rise sharply. He hated that. He hated anything that reminded him of the poor past he was trying to bury. "Stop using my father's name," he yelled. "You are not my mother." Mama Ruth's lips parted. The words hit her harder than a slap. She bent over like her back had been cut. Neighbors began to talk louder now. "Chinedu, that woman raised you. She carried you on her back. She suffered." A man stepped forward. "Young man, calm down. Let us talk." Chinedu snapped his head toward him. "Mind your business," he shouted. "This is my house. This is my life. Nobody will tell me what to do in my own compound." The man stepped back, shaking his head. Mama Ruth's hands continued to gather her things slowly, piece by piece, quietly. No insults. No fighting. Only tears. Only shaking hands. Only silent pain. Then she paused. Her fingers touched the small brown envelope again, the one that almost fell into the dust. She held it like it was something important. Then, still kneeling, she raised her face toward Chinedu. "I will not curse you," she said softly. "Because curses do not build anyone." Chinedu scoffed. "Spare me that," Mama Ruth continued, her voice trembling but firm. "But I will say this." She swallowed. "God will judge between us." The neighbors fell quiet again. Something in her voice made even the strongest person feel cold. Chinedu's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Mama Ruth leaned forward and began to pack her life back into the faded bag. She did it by touch, by memory, by pain. When she finished, she tried to lift the bag, but it was heavy, too heavy for her weak body now. She struggled. Her arms shook. Her knees trembled. A neighbor woman rushed forward to help her. But before the woman could touch the bag, Chinedu barked, "Leave her. Let her carry it. She carried it when she came to steal." Mama Ruth froze again. The neighbor woman pulled her hands back slowly, eyes full of tears. Mama Ruth nodded gently, as if she understood. She stood up, using the gate pillar to support herself. Then she lifted the faded bag, with all the strength left in her tired body. She balanced it on her head again. But this time, the bag did not sit straight. It leaned to one side, just like her life. Then Mama Ruth took one step out of the compound, another step, and another. She walked slowly down the dusty road, blind, weak, and alone. People watched with wet eyes. Children stared silently, and Chinedu stood at the gate, breathing hard like a man who had just won a fight. But the truth was, he had just kicked out the very person who built his life with her suffering. As Mama Ruth walked away, she suddenly stumbled. The bag slipped again. She grabbed it quickly, but the edge of her wrapper got caught under her foot. She almost fell. A small boy ran forward and held her elbow. "Mama, sorry," the boy said gently. "Hold me." Mama Ruth's mouth trembled. She nodded and held the boy's arm. And just as she steadied herself, a sharp voice came from behind, low and dangerous. "Good. Now you can finally breathe. It was a woman's voice, sweet but poisonous. Chinedu turned slowly. Standing behind him, inside the compound, was Adeyes, his wife. Her arms were folded. Her face held a small, satisfied smile. And behind her, half hidden in the shadow of the doorway, stood Kenechukwu, Chinedu's cousin. Kene's eyes moved quickly, like someone hiding a secret. Adeze leaned toward Chinedu and whispered something that made his face change. His anger flickered. Then his eyes widened. "What?" Chinedu said sharply. "Are you sure?" Adeze nodded, still smiling. Kane shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Chinedu's eyes. Chinedu stared at the dusty road where Mama Ruth was disappearing, and for the first time, a strange fear crawled into his chest, because the lie that pushed him to throw Mama Ruth out was about to grow teeth, and someone inside his own house was smiling too much. Chinedu turned back to Kene slowly. His voice dropped, tight and suspicious. "Kene," he said, "look at me. What exactly did you do with the money?" Kene's eyes widened. Adese's smile froze, and the gate creaked loudly behind them as if warning that something terrible was about to happen. The gate slammed shut behind Mama Ruth. The loud clang echoed inside Chinedu's chest, even though he pretended not to hear it. Dust rose from the road as her slow footsteps faded into the distance. The neighbors slowly returned to their homes, shaking their heads, whispering prayers under their breath. Inside the compound, the air changed. It was no longer hot. It was heavy. Chinedu turned slowly to face Adeyeze and Kenechukwu. "What exactly did you mean by that?" he asked again, his voice low. "You said you were sure." "Sure of what?" Adeze dropped her folded arms and walked closer. She adjusted her wrapper calmly, like someone who had already won. "I mean what I said," she replied. "That woman has been planning this thing for a long time." Kene shifted his weight from one leg to another. "Adeze," Chinedu said sharply, "let Kene speak." All eyes turned to Kene. He swallowed. "Brother, I only told you what I saw," he said carefully. Chinedu stepped closer. "What did you see?" Kene rubbed his palms together. "That night you traveled to Abuja, I came to check on Mama Ruth like you asked. I saw her coming out of your room." Chinedu's brows pulled together. "Coming out of my room?" he repeated. "Yes," Kene said quickly. "She was holding something. She looked scared when she saw me." Adeze nodded fast. "Exactly, I told you." She thought nobody would notice. Chinedu's heart thumped. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" he asked. Kene looked down. "I didn't want to cause trouble, but when the money went missing, everything became clear." Chinedu dragged his hand down his face. Inside his head, pictures began to form. Mama Ruth feeling her way into his room. Mama Ruth opening his drawer. Mama Ruth touching his money. The thoughts burned, but somewhere deep inside him, a small voice whispered, "She is blind." He pushed the voice away. "How else would the money disappear?" Adeze added. "Did spirits come and carry it?" "In full." Chinedu clenched his fists. "No," he said. "No spirits." He walked toward the house and entered the living room. The furniture shone. Everything smelled new. Success lived in this place now. But something felt wrong. Chinedu sat down heavily on the couch. Kene followed him in. Adeyes stood by the door. "Tell me everything," Chinedu said. "From the beginning." Kene cleared his throat. "When Uncle died, Mama Ruth became desperate," he began. "She suffered a lot. Maybe she feared you would send her away now that you are rich." "That is a lie," Chinedu snapped. "I never planned to send her away. But maybe she thought so," Kene replied softly. "Fear can make people do bad things." Chinedu leaned back, breathing hard. Adeze stepped forward. "My husband, open your eyes. You carried her for years. She should be grateful." Instead, she wanted to secure herself. Chinedu nodded slowly. Yes, he muttered. "That must be it." Outside, night began to fall. In another part of town, Mama Ruth walked slowly along the roadside, tapping the ground with her worn stick. The small boy had gone back to his home after guiding her to the junction. She was alone now. Cars passed, splashing dust. People hurried past her. She felt hunger twist her stomach, but she ignored it. Her mind was far away. She remembered the first day she met Chinedu. He was 7 years old. Small, dirty, crying beside his father's body. Mama Ruth had not planned to raise another child. Life was already hard, but when she saw that boy shaking beside the grave, something broke inside her. She took him home that day. From that day, she became mother and father. She begged when she had to. She washed clothes till her fingers cracked. She went to bed hungry many nights so Chinedu could eat. When her eyes started failing, she still guided him with prayers. She never imagined this ending. Mama Ruth stopped walking and sat on a low block by the roadside. She adjusted the faded bag on her head and sighed deeply. God, she whispered, I did not steal. Tears rolled down her face. Back in the house, Adayez served dinner. Chinedu barely touched his food. Kene, he said suddenly, where is that money now? Kena hesitated. I don't know, he replied. Adayezi frowned. What do you mean you don't know? Kena shrugged. If she hid it somewhere before leaving, we may never find it. Chinedu slammed his spoon down. No, he said, she wouldn't hide it. Adayezi's eyes flashed. You are still defending her. Chinedu stood up. I am only saying we must be sure, he said. This thing is not sitting well with me. Adayezi scoffed. So after all she has done, you still doubt? Before Chinedu could respond, his phone rang. Unknown number. He stared at it for a second before answering. Hello? Is this Chinedu Okafor? A male voice asked. Yes. Chinedu replied. This is Mr. Balogun from the microfinance bank, the voice said. We need to speak with you urgently about a transaction. Chinedu's heart skipped. What transaction? He asked. There was a withdrawal request today, Mr. Balogun said. From your old savings account. Chinedu frowned. My old account, he repeated. I closed that account years ago. There was a pause on the line. That is why we are calling, the banker replied. Someone came with documents claiming authority. Chinedu felt cold. Who? He asked. We will discuss it in person, the banker said. Please come tomorrow morning. The call ended. Adayez stepped closer. What is it? Chinedu looked at her slowly. The bank called, he said. About a withdrawal. Adayez's face hardened. You see? I told you. But Chinedu shook his head. They said old account, he murmured. The one my father opened. Kena's eyes flickered. That account was linked to Mama Ruth, Adayez said quickly. She used to help him manage it. Chinedu turned sharply to Kene. Is that true? He asked. Kene hesitated for a second too long. Yes. But, Chinedu cut him off. That account has documents only my father and Mama Ruth knew, he said slowly. Adayez crossed her arms again. Then who else could it be? Chinedu said nothing. Inside him, doubt and anger wrestled like wild animals. Far away, Mama Ruth lay on the cold floor of a small, unfinished building, using her bag as a pillow. She whispered prayers into the dark. She did not know that the lie that chased her away was growing deeper. She did not know that tomorrow would bring questions nobody expected. And inside Chinedu's house, while he lay awake staring at the ceiling, one truth remained hidden. Someone close to him was lying, and the cost of that lie was about to rise. Chinedu did not sleep that night. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, his eyes burning, his chest heavy. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Mama Ruth kneeling on the dusty road, her faded bag torn open, her hands shaking as she gathered her life from the ground. He turned to the side. She is blind, the small voice inside him whispered again. How could she steal? Stop it, Chinedu muttered to himself. He sat up suddenly. The house was quiet. Adayez slept beside him, her back turned. Her breathing was calm, almost peaceful. Too peaceful for someone whose house had just been shaken by scandal. Chinedu slipped out of bed quietly. He walked to the living room and stood there in the dark, his hands on his waist. The walls were decorated with framed pictures, graduation photos, business awards, smiling faces. One picture caught his eye. It was an old photo, faded and slightly bent. A young Chinedu stood barefoot in front of a mud house. Beside him was Mama Ruth, younger then, smiling wide, her hand resting proudly on his shoulder. Chinedu picked up the frame. His throat tightened. She would never steal, he whispered. But then another thought came. What if hunger pushed her? What if fear changed her? His head felt like it would split. By morning, Chinedu was already dressed. He did not tell Ades where he was going. "I'll be back," was all he said. Ades frowned. "Where are you going so early?" "To the bank," Chinedu replied. Her face stiffened. "Why?" "To hear the truth," he said, and walked out before she could say more. The microfinance bank was small but neat. Chinedu sat across the desk from Mr. Balogun, a middle-aged man with glasses and a calm voice. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Okafor," the banker said. "We were surprised by yesterday's request." "Please explain everything," Chinedu said. "From the beginning." Mr. Balogun opened a file. "The account in question was opened by your late father," he began. "Mama Ruth was listed as a trustee." "Yes," Chinedu said. "I know that." "Yesterday," the banker continued, "someone came claiming Mama Ruth had given permission to withdraw part of the funds." Chinedu leaned forward. "Mama Ruth came herself?" Mr. Balogun shook his head. "No," he said slowly. "She did not." Chinedu froze. "Who came then?" he asked. The banker adjusted his glasses. "A young man. He said he was acting on her behalf." Chinedu's heart began to race. "What is his name?" he asked. Mr. Balogun looked at the form. "Kenechukwu Okafor." The room spun. Chinedu gripped the edge of the desk. "Kene?" he whispered. "Yes," Mr. Balogun said. "He had documents. Old documents." "Where did he get them?" Chinedu asked sharply. "That is what puzzled us," the banker replied. "The signatures were convincing, but something felt off. That is why we called you." Chinedu's mouth went dry. "How much was withdrawn?" he asked. 1 million naira, Mr. Balogun said. Chinedu closed his eyes. Kenna, his cousin, the same Kene who swore he was only helping, the same Kene who said Mama Ruth was afraid. "Did Mama Ruth ever come to confirm this withdrawal?" Chinedu asked. "No," the banker said. "She did not." Chinedu stood up suddenly. "Thank you," he said. "I will handle this." Outside the bank, Chinedu stood under the hot sun, breathing hard. Anger burned inside him, now not wild anger, but sharp, cutting anger. Kenelid. But what about Adeze? He remembered how quickly she pushed the blame, how quickly she encouraged him, how she smiled when Mama Ruth left. Chinedu pulled out his phone and dialed Kene's number. It rang. Once. Twice. Then stopped. He tried again. No answer. Chinedu's jaw tightened. Far away, Mama Ruth sat under a mango tree beside an old church building. The pastor's wife had allowed her to rest there. She had not eaten since yesterday. Her body was weak, but her spirit was strong. She held the small brown envelope tightly. Inside it were documents she had kept safe for years, papers her late husband had trusted her with. Papers she planned to give Chinedu when the time was right. She whispered prayers softly. "God, fight for me," she said. "I have no strength left." A young girl from the church approached her with a bottle of water. "Mama, drink," the girl said gently. Mama Ruth smiled weakly. "Thank you, my child." As she drank, footsteps approached. "Mama Ruth." She turned her face toward the voice. "Yes?" "It's me," the voice said softly. "I am Pastor Samuel." Mama Ruth bowed her head. "Good afternoon, sir." "I heard what happened," the pastor said. "People are talking." Mama Ruth sighed. "Let them talk." The pastor hesitated. "Mama, did you take Chinedu's money?" Mama Ruth shook her head firmly. "Never." The pastor nodded slowly. "Then God will speak." Mama Ruth said nothing. Back at home, Adeze paced the living room. Kene sat on the edge of a chair, sweating. "You said he wouldn't go to the bank." Adeze hissed. "I didn't expect this." Kenna replied nervously. "You said the old woman would disappear quietly," Adeze said. "Now look." Kene wiped his face. "We can still fix it." Adeze stopped pacing. "How?" she asked. Kene leaned forward and lowered his voice. "We make sure Mama Ruth never comes back to explain herself." Adeze's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" she whispered. Before Kene could answer, the front door opened loudly. Chinedu stepped in. His face was calm. Too calm. Both Adeze and Kene froze. Chinedu dropped his car keys on the table. "Kene," he said quietly, "where were you yesterday afternoon?" Keen swallowed hard. "I told you." "Answer me," Chinedu said, his voice firm. Adeze stepped in quickly. Why are you interrogating him like this? Chinedu turned slowly to face her. Because the bank says Kene withdrew money from my father's account, he said. Silence fell. Adese's face drained of color. Kene stood up suddenly. That's a lie, he shouted. Chinedu stared at him. The bank has your name, Chinedu said. Your signature, your face on camera. Kene's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Adese stepped back slowly. Chinedu took one step closer. Tell me the truth, he said. Right now. Kene's knees shook, and just as he was about to speak, Adese screamed, Stop, enough. Chinedu turned sharply to her. Adese, he said slowly. What are you hiding? Adese's chest rose and fell rapidly. Her eyes darted to the door, to the window, to Kene. Then she said something that made Chinedu feel like the ground had vanished beneath his feet. She was never supposed to survive this long. Adese blurted out. Chinedu froze. What did you just say? Adese covered her mouth. Kene stared at her in horror. And outside the house, unknown to them, someone stood near the gate listening. Chinedu felt the blood drain from his face. She was never supposed to survive this long. The words echoed in his head like thunder. Adese's hands trembled as she covered her mouth, as if she could push the words back inside. Kene stood frozen, eyes wide, sweat rolling down his temple. What did you just say? Chinedu asked again, slowly, dangerously calm. Adese shook her head quickly. I didn't mean it like that. Chinedu took one step toward her. Then how did you mean it? Kene suddenly spoke, his voice cracking. Adese, keep quiet. Chinedu's head snapped toward him. No, you will not tell her to keep quiet. He pointed at Kene. You lied to me, you stole my money. And now you want to control the truth. Kene dropped his eyes. Adese backed away until her body touched the wall. Chinedu, please, she said, tears forming. You are misunderstanding everything. Explain it, Chinedu said. Now. Adese swallowed. That woman has been sick for years. Blind, weak, depending on us. I only meant that. I thought nature would take its course. Chinedu's chest tightened. You thought she would die? He asked quietly. Adese did not answer. Silence filled the room, thick and heavy. Kene sank back into the chair, his shoulders slumped. It wasn't supposed to go this far, he murmured. Chinedu turned to him sharply. Then tell me how far it was supposed to go. Kene rubbed his face. I needed money, he confessed. Just to settle some debts. I knew about Uncle's old account. Mama Ruth used to keep the documents in her bag. Chinedu's heart skipped. Her bag? Yes, Kene said. That faded bag she always carries. One night when she was asleep, I took the papers. I thought I would return them. Adese gasped. You said you found them lying around. Kene snapped at her. I was trying to protect us. Chinedu's fists clenched. So you stole the documents, he said. You went to the bank. You withdrew the money. Kene nodded slowly. Yes. And then you blamed Mama Ruth. Chinedu continued, his voice shaking. You watched me throw her out. Kene lowered his head. I was scared. Chinedu turned to Adese again. And you? He asked. You knew? Adese hesitated. Answer me. Chinedu said. Yes, she whispered. I knew. The word hit him like a slap. You knew she didn't steal, Chinedu said. And you still let me disgrace her. Adese's tears fell freely now. I was tired of her, she cried. She reminded me of poverty, of struggle. I wanted peace in my house. Chinedu laughed bitterly. Peace? He repeated. You destroyed my peace. He walked away from them, pacing the room. His mind replayed the scene at the gate, Mama Ruth kneeling, gathering her things, whispering that God would judge between them. His legs felt weak. Where is she now? Chinedu asked suddenly. Nobody answered. Where is Mama Ruth? He shouted. Adese wiped her tears. I don't know. Chinedu grabbed his car keys. I am going to find her, he said. It's late, Adese said weakly. She could be anywhere. Chinedu turned to her, his eyes burning. If anything happens to her. He did not finish the sentence. Night had fallen fully. Chinedu drove through the streets, scanning every corner. He checked the junction where she had stumbled. He checked the roadside where beggars slept. He asked people, showing her picture. Old blind woman? One man said. She passed here earlier. Did she say where she was going? Chinedu asked desperately. The man shook his head. She was praying. Chinedu's chest tightened. He drove to churches, hospitals, unfinished buildings. No Mama Ruth. Meanwhile, under the mango tree beside the church, Mama Ruth lay curled on her side. Her breathing was shallow. The day's stress had drained her strength. Pastor Samuel sat nearby, praying softly. She has fever, the pastor's wife whispered. We need to take her to the clinic. Mama Ruth stirred slightly. My son, she murmured. The pastor leaned close. Mama, do you mean Chinedu? She nodded faintly. Do you want us to call him? The pastor asked gently. Mama Ruth's lips trembled. Not yet, she whispered. Let him find the truth first. Her fingers tightened around the small brown envelope. Back at the house, Adeze paced again. What if he finds her? She muttered. Kene looked up sharply. Why are you worried? Adeze's eyes darted to the window. Because if she speaks, everything is finished. Kene stared at her. What else haven't you told him? Adeze opened her mouth, and the front door burst open. Chinedu stormed in, his face pale. I can't find her, he said hoarsely. Adeze rushed forward. Chinedu, don't touch me, he snapped. He sank onto the couch, covering his face with his hands. What if she dies out there? He whispered. The room fell silent. Suddenly, Chinedu stood up again. The bag, he said. Her bag. Adeze frowned. What about it? That bag, Chinedu said slowly. She never leaves it behind. Never. He turned to Kene. You said you took documents from her bag. Kene nodded. Yes. What else was inside? Chinedu asked. Kene hesitated. I don't know. I didn't check everything. Chinedu's heart began to pound. What if there was something important? He whispered. He grabbed his jacket. I am going back to the church, he said. Now. As he reached the door, his phone rang. Unknown number. His hands shook as he answered. Hello. Is this Chinedu Okafor? A calm voice asked. Yes. This is Pastor Samuel, the voice said. We have Mama Ruth here. She is very weak. Chinedu's knees almost gave way. Is she alive? He asked urgently. Yes, the pastor replied. But she is asking for you. Chinedu closed his eyes. I am coming, he said. I am coming now. As he hung up, Adeze whispered, Thank God. Chinedu turned slowly to face her. Don't thank God yet, he said coldly. Because when Mama Ruth speaks, I will hear everything. Adeze's face drained of color, and somewhere in the quiet church compound, Mama Ruth held her envelope tightly, preparing to reveal a truth that would shake Chinedu's world forever. The church compound was quiet when Chinedu arrived. Only one bulb glowed near the small office, throwing weak light onto the sandy ground. Crickets sang in the bushes. The mango tree stood still, its shadow long and dark. Chinedu parked badly and jumped out of the car. Mama Ruth, he called, his voice shaking. Pastor Samuel came out quickly. She's inside, he said gently. Please. Be calm. Chinedu nodded, though his heart was pounding like a drum. He stepped into the small room. Mama Ruth lay on a thin mattress on the floor. Her wrapper was pulled up to her chest. Her face looked smaller, thinner. Her breathing was slow and tired, but she was alive. Chinedu rushed forward and dropped to his knees beside her. Mama, he whispered. Mama, I'm here. Her cloudy eyes turned toward his voice. Chinedu, she said softly. You came. Tears filled his eyes instantly. I'm sorry, he cried. Mama, I am so sorry. She did not answer right away. She lifted one weak hand. Chinedu grabbed it and pressed it to his face. I was blind, he sobbed. Not you. Me. I listened to lies. I threw you out. I shamed you. Mama Ruth's fingers trembled in his hand. Lift your head, she said gently. Chinedu obeyed. She reached up and touched his face slowly, feeling his cheeks, his forehead, his nose like she used to do when he was a boy. You are still my son, she said. Even when you hurt me. Chinedu broke down completely. I know the truth now, he said through tears. Kene stole the money. Adeze knew. I didn't ask questions. I didn't listen. I failed you. Mama Ruth sighed deeply. Sit, she said. Pastor Samuel helped Chinedu sit properly beside her. Mama Ruth reached for the small brown envelope beside her pillow. This, she said, is why I never left my bag. Chinedu watched closely as she placed the envelope in his hands. Inside were old papers, land documents, receipts, and a handwritten letter. These are from your father, Mama Ruth said. Before he died, Chinedu opened the letter with shaking fingers and began to read. My son, if you are reading this, I am gone. Mama Ruth is the reason you survived. Everything I have left is in her care. Trust her with your life because I trusted her with yours. Chinedu dropped the letter and cried like a child. Mama Ruth continued softly. Your father bought land for you in my name. He said, one day when you become a man, I should give it to you. I wanted to wait for the right time. Chinedu covered his mouth. I threw you out, he whispered. I threw out my destiny. Mama Ruth nodded slowly. Yes, the word was calm, honest, heavy. You broke something that day, she said. Not only my heart, yours too. Chinedu shook his head desperately. Please come home with me. I will fix everything. I will kneel in the street if I must. I will chase Adeze out. I will make things right. Mama Ruth was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that made the room go still. No. Chinedu froze. No, he repeated. I cannot come back. She said gently. Why? He cried. Why not? Mama Ruth turned her face away slightly. Because love needs safety, she said. And my heart is tired. Chinedu reached for her again. I will protect you, I swear. She shook her head. You already chose once, she said. And choices have weight. Outside, footsteps approached. Adeze stood at the door, pale and shaking. Kene stood behind her, unable to lift his head. I want to confess, Kene blurted out. I will return the money. I will face the police. Please. Mama Ruth did not even turn toward him. Confession is not for me, she said. It is for God. Adeze fell to her knees. Mama Ruth, forgive me, she cried. I was jealous. I was afraid, please. Mama Ruth finally turned her face toward her. Fear does not excuse cruelty, she said quietly. Adeze sobbed. Chinedu stood up slowly and faced his wife. Leave, he said. Adeze looked up. Chinedu. Leave, he repeated. Tonight. She saw his face and knew it was over. She stood, shaking, and walked out. Kene followed silently. The room became quiet again. Mama Ruth's breathing grew heavier. Pastor Samuel checked her pulse and frowned slightly. She needs rest, he said. Chinedu knelt again. I will stay, he said. Mama Ruth smiled faintly. No, she said. Go. I won't, he insisted. She squeezed his hand weakly. Go and fix what you broke in yourself. That is how you honor me. Tears streamed down his face as he nodded. I love you, he whispered. I know, she replied. He stood and walked to the door, turning back one last time. Mama. Yes? Will you ever forgive me? Mama Ruth was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Forgiveness is a journey, not a door. Chinedu stepped out into the night. 3 days later, Mama Ruth passed quietly in her sleep. No pain, no struggle, just peace. When Chinedu arrived at the church that morning, it was already too late. He collapsed on the floor and cried until his body had no strength left. At the burial, people came from everywhere. Old neighbors, school teachers, market women she once helped, people Chinedu had never met but who knew Mama Ruth's kindness. They told stories, how she paid school fees with borrowed money, how she prayed for strangers, how she never spoke ill of anyone. Chinedu listened in silence. After the burial, he stood alone by her grave. I am a man today, he whispered. But I became one too late. He used the land documents to build a small community school in her name. He paid back every debt. He helped the poor quietly. But at night, when the house was silent, he still heard the sound of the bag falling to the ground. And he knew the truth. Some doors close not because there is no key, but because cruelty locked them from the inside. If you like this story, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.